To completely reinvent your life, big or small, in one area or your entire life, if you've been struggling to make changes that are lasting in your life, whether it's a habit that you want to install, whether it's a new skill that you want to develop, whether it's a new friend group you want to create in your life, or whether you want to make a move, whatever it is, if you want to completely reinvent yourself, again, whether it's in one area, maybe it's just within your career, you want to switch careers, or maybe you want a new group of friends, or maybe you want to pick up a new sport, and you want to reinvent that version of yourself, reinvent, create something new, add in, take away. I'm going to run you through this 3 stages to do it over and over and over again in any area of your life. Today, tomorrow, next week, next year, there's 3 key stages. And this isn't me speaking just on this willy-nilly, although I'm going to loop in my experience from a few different areas of my life. But this is from some deep-rooted psychology on social hierarchy and social dynamics. I might actually be screwing up the label a little bit, but basically how humans work from a societal perspective, from like a social being perspective, and how we relate to others. And so there's some really interesting things that go on here. But the 3 stages to completely reinventing anything in your life, big or small, one area of your entire life, is this: identification, participation, and validation. All right? So we're going to cover all 3. And again, if the problem that you're facing is that you want to make some sort of change in your life, and you've tried sometimes, or you're too afraid to, right? You've either tried, you do it, but then you slip back into the old version of you, or you're even too afraid to jump out of the current version of you, again, in any area, it's probably because of one of these 3 things, okay? So, tap the fuck in. Now, identification. So you begin to identify one of 2 things. Either one, the current version of you, again, I'm going to speak both in these like extremes where it's like your entire life, maybe you want to change your entire life, or it's just like one area of your life, which is typically going to be the case, okay? You will begin to identify with some version of you, or you see someone, you see a social group, you see a role model, and you're like, I want to be like that. I resonate with that. And something inside of me is resonating with this thing that I'm seeing, this version of myself that I envision, or what I see in others. I identify, I become in alignment with, and I think I want to become that person. I want to do what that guy's doing. I'll give you an example. When I was younger, I saw some very impressive acts at the circus, right? And the guy is, you know, in that big like cage wheel thing, and he's like driving the dirt bike up and around, like literally in the loop. And then I also saw later that this guy's fucking flying over this jump and landing on the other side, and there's these huge jumps. And at that time, although I didn't go and do this, I identified with wanting to do that. And so my motivation for wanting to go and figure this out all of a sudden went up. But I started with identifying with it, okay? And that's a very peculiar example just to show you that it could literally be anything. As long as you identify with the thing you're seeing, what the person's doing, how the person's behaving, and you want that, that's stage 1. Stage 1 is just becoming in resonance with the thing, with the behavior, with the person, with the environment, with the social group, whatever that is, okay? Now, if we were to bring this into Actualize, which if you don't know, I run this company, sorry, I have Active Track on. I don't even think I'm gonna be able to show you. I run this company called Actualize, and we help young men build brotherhood and become their best self. And it's all precedent, or based off the precedent that I as an individual want to become my best self, and if I do that, and I see a group of guys that are doing that, then I identify with what they're doing, and then I want to join in on that, okay? But you as the individual, if you wanted to join Actualize, you have to first identify with wanting to become your best self. Something has to resonate inside of you. You see that best version of you. You see a version of you that you are not. whatever that might be, you need to identify with the idea of becoming your best self. So, step one is identification. Hopefully we got that. So ask yourself, what are you identifying with? What are you in alignment with? What do you resonate with right now that you are trying to become? That you are trying to step into or model that you currently are not doing in your life right now, okay? Because you clicked on this video because you want to reinvent your life. You want to reinvent yourself in some way, shape, or form. And in order to do that, you need to know what are you going to reinvent yourself into, which is stage one, identification. Now, stage two and stage three is really where the magic happens. But before we get there, again, you have to know, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to step into? And it could be as minuscule and as black and white as I want to learn a new skill. So identify with the idea that the version of me does not have this skill, and the new version of me has this skill. Very black and white, right? I want a skill, I don't have the skill. I am identifying with the version of myself that has a skill. Or, in the sake of athletics, I identify with the Kobe Bryant of the world. I identify, with, an F1 racer, and I'm like, I want that skill, right? But what is it? And the clearer you are, the easier it is to move on to participation. And the faster you can step into participation. Now, are you gonna master the skill? Are you gonna become this new version of yourself overnight? No, but I'm gonna make it easier with these variables. Now, I have some field notes here because there's a number of things, but I'm gonna first break down the concept of participation. So I've identified. Now, what I need to do is I need to participate in becoming this new version of myself, or stepping into this ideal that I'm thinking about, okay? So I'm gonna start to use the example that I had when I made this video, or came up with this video idea, which is mountain biking. So for anyone that has not had the absolute honor to step onto a mountain bike, first and foremost, I encourage you to go mountain biking. It's one of the coolest experiences, and yes, it is dangerous, and yes, it is, risky and all this stuff, but it is one of the, especially if you're a guy, if you're a high performer, I've yet to find something as thrilling and as humbling, but just puts you in a state of flow. I won't go into it all, but one of my joys in life is introducing people to mountain biking. And so I recommend you go and try mountain biking at least once in your life. If not, you'll give it a good shot and you'll try it 2 or 3 times. And I'll explain why at the end here, as to why you almost need to try it 2 or 3 times, whether it's mountain biking or something else. But for me, my buddy, shout out Zach, has been mountain biking. He's been a mountain biking guy. And I've always considered myself very open to risk, first and foremost, physically, financially, in other areas. And so when I first moved to BC and out here in Canada, where all the mountain biking happens, he was like, oh dude, when you move here, like you totally got to try mountain biking. It's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I'd be down. I was definitely in the back of my mind, like I'm kind of scared of it, but I'd be down, right? So I identified with the idea of me mountain biking. And I looked at him, I looked at me, I'm like, yeah, I can do that, right? So I've identified, okay, what's the thing that I don't have right now, which is mountain biking. And then I looked at him and I was like, okay, how do we do it, right? How do I participate now? It's like, okay, well, we need a mountain bike, which is one of the things, right? And we need a trail, and we gotta go on the trail, and we need the equipment, and we need the skill of riding a bike, and yada, yada. So this goes into participation. So I identified with it, now I'm participating. I can simply participate with the idea of, I want to mountain bike, right? And then I can get deeper and deeper, and this is where it comes in. So I wanted to participate in mountain biking. To the degree in which I'm participating is the degree in which I'm engaging in these variables that I wrote down on my phone here. So let me give you 2 scenarios. I'll just keep going with the mountain biking thing. I get out to the mountain, right? For the first time. Before we even go there, what do we got to do? I need a bike. He owns a bike. He's been doing it for many years. he already has a ton of that. So he doesn't need to get his bike, right? He has his equipment, he has his safety equipment, he has his helmets, yada, 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 okay? But for me to participate and be someone who mountain bikes, I needed to go to someone else and say, hey, I don't own a bike. I need to rent your bike. I need to rent your safety equipment. I need to rent your shoes. I need to rent your helmet. And I need to go figure out how to mountain bike. But before that, I get all the equipment. Okay, perfect. One of the variables is getting the equipment that you need to participate. Sometimes there's actual equipment you need. So I got the equipment, great. Now I can at least engage in the act of mountain biking. Next thing I need to do is I need to get on the mountain and actually pedal the bike. So I actually need to have the skill of biking and then specifically riding the mountain bike, because there's some few like nuances with that, etc. Okay. So the two examples are me and Zach. Me being the very first time, I have little skill. The equipment is not mine, so I don't really feel an ownership of the equipment. And two, I don't have any real like clothing that says I'm a mountain biker, you know? Like Zach was decked out with a mountain biking long sleeve. He had his own full face helmet. He had his own safety pads. He had his own shoes that were specific to mountain biking. And he looked the part, you know, and he rode the part because he had the skill. Me on the other side, don't have the skill. It's someone else's bike, it's someone else's helmet, it's someone else's shoes, and I do not have any equipment, or sorry, clothing that makes me look like a mountain biker, okay? All I have is my willingness to participate, okay? The idea that I identify with it and the willingness to get on the bike and prior skill on knowing how to pedal a fucking bike. But I didn't know how to handle, you know, the seat that goes up and down, the full suspension, you know, how to go back and forth, how to pedal it up, the actual endurance to pedal it up, right? So I felt super out of place. All right, so when I first participated, there was so much friction and I felt so out of place that although I identified with the idea of doing it, I did not feel like a mountain biker. Now there's a key thing in that. Again, you look at Zach. He had the endurance to pedal up the mountain and actually go down the mountain. He had the skill to pedal. He had the skill to go down and turn and brake, and he owned the bike. He owned the clothing. He looked the part. When I look at him, like, this guy's a fucking mountain biker, right? He knew the language, all right? And I'm gonna break all these down, but he knew the language on what it meant on all the bits and pieces of the bike, and it's a freaking machine, and he knew the travel, and he knew, you know, the dropper posts and the PSI for the tires. He knew it all, right? He knew it all. Meanwhile, I feel so foreign. I feel like this is a freaking second language. I feel like at any moment, I'm gonna freaking crash this thing. I have no confidence in myself on the bike besides the confidence I hold for myself in life, which thankfully was high, or is high, I should say. But I hope you feel these two pictures. So I'm participating now, but the depth at which I'm participating is very shallow. Again, Zach, deep. Why? Because of all these variables I'm starting to talk about. And so if I were to pause for a second and pass it to you, when you identify with a thing, I'm gonna do this thing, and you wanna do the thing at a high level, so you wanna participate at the thing at a high level. The speed at which you feel like you can participate with productivity, so doing it in an efficient, effective manner, will depend on these variables, okay? Because again, for me, I did not feel like I was a mountain biker. I did not feel like I had the skill of mountain biking. Why? Because of these variables, okay? And if you can nail these variables, you can hijack the ability to feel in a deeper level of participation faster than someone else. And I'm gonna get into the rest of my story with mountain biking because I'm gonna show you my evolution and why that mattered. But the variables are this. You might have recognized some of them, okay? Maybe even pause the video. What variables did I kept referring to that allowed Zach to feel like he was on a deep level of participation in mountain biking versus me? Pause the video, okay? The variables are clothing, number one. So Zach had the clothing of a mountain biker. Right now, I'm standing behind tennis courts. What are all those people wearing? What are all those people, not the holding, but what are they wearing? Some of them are wearing tennis shoes. Some of them are literally wearing tennis shirts. Clothing matters. when you want to start to participate in becoming a new version of yourself. Again, whether it's within a field or your entire life. Language. So Zach knew all this language that I didn't about what's this and what's that. He knew the language of the bike. He knew the language of the trails. He knew the rules. So this is going to be another one, but he knew the language of the rules. Okay, so for example, on a mountain bike, there's a word called travel, and it means how far down your suspension goes. And the higher the travel, so the units are like 150 mm or 200 mm, the higher it is, the better travel, the more you can embrace on drops and jumps and whatnot. So when you know the language of something, you feel like you are participating more in the thing, okay? Think about that for yourself. What kind of language do you need to know to feel more involved in the thing? Another example would be software and coding. Like, software is literally another language. It's literally called the coding language, whatever, right? So that's a whole other language that you need to know. Equipment's another one. And again, the mountain biking is a perfect example. I needed a bike to participate in this, but I had someone else's bike. Guess what I did? I loved it so much. Guess what I did after the first time going mountain biking? I went and bought a bike. Why? Because I understood this principle that it's like, if I truly wanted to get into mountain biking and I wanted to get good at mountain biking, I need to own the equipment. I need to have ownership over it, because I knew that was a variable. So equipment, what equipment do you need? And not always, but again, if you're a coder and I have a shitty laptop, I'm not gonna feel like the fucking badass coder that has the best laptop with the best graphics that can run anything, right? So what equipment do you need? What equipment could you buy? Not need, but what equipment would the top of the top have in this field? Okay, go and buy that. Tools and software. So this is slightly different than equipment. If equipment is the laptop, if that's like the hardware, the software, it could be like a specific like app that runs on the computer that only coders use. Or in the case of mountain biking, there was an app on our phone that Zach had that I didn't, called All Trails, or Trailforks, sorry. And when I bought Trailforks, I actually I remember feeling like, oh yeah, like, and I opened it up on my own phone and I showed me and Zach where to go. Wow, I felt like a mountain biker, right? But before then, for the first like 5 or 6 times that me and Zach went, like Zach would always pull up Trailforks. He would pull up the app and he'd be like, hey, we're gonna go here, look at this trail, we're gonna go there, right? Because I was still following him and I wasn't as identified in participation with the skill of mountain biking and with mountain biking as he was. So it's another one. So tools and software. So what apps do the people in your world or whatever, do they have, right? What softwares do they have downloaded on their phones? Next one is habits. So what habits do you need to engage in that will allow you to feel like you can participate deeper, okay? Again, in the mountain biking one, there's a few habits. But obviously the biggest one is just going mountain biking, like more and more often. But another habit is washing the bike, right? After Zach would always go, he'd wash his bike, shine it up, whatever, right? He would take it up to his spot and he would set it there. What habits does this new version of you need to embody to feel like you can participate on a deeper level? As a coder, what habits do you have? Right? Like, what are the habits of a coder? Obviously, again, coding, right? There's gonna be some really obvious ones, but then maybe there's some other ones, that they do. Next one is people. Huge one. This is a huge one. So your environment is made up of 3 key variables. People, surroundings, so your physical surroundings, like I'm in a park right now, that's my surroundings, okay? And then the last one is information and media. What information is coming into my awareness, or what information can I consume? Okay, so part 1 is the people. What people do you either want to surround yourself with, or listen to, or learn from, or talk to that will allow you to feel at a deeper level of participation? Perfect example. I'm a DJ. I want to start, I'll go back to the mountain bike one. I'm a mountain biker. I want to get into mountain biking and I want to go as deep as I can. Great. So I start mountain biking. I buy my own mountain bike. I got the clothing. I got the helmet. It's all mine, right? And I got the Trailforks, I got everything. I can either hang around amateur mountain bikers, or I can go find the best of the best mountain bikers. I can go find a coach, and I can surround myself with the coach. I can go to the Red Bull or Crankworks in Whistler and literally be around the best of the best. That is the deepest level. They're participating at the deepest level or the highest level, whatever way you want to look at it, when it comes to mountain biking. So the people matter. And the people, and I should say the environment, is the fastest way to just make quantum leaps in your participation, in your ability to participate at the highest level or the deepest level. And I'm throwing myself off saying both those, okay? So the people is one of the fastest ways to make the hijack. The environment in general, but then people, and then surroundings, which is the other one. So your surroundings, if you want to completely reinvent yourself, and you're living in, I'll give it a different example for this one. I was living in a small town called Peterborough, Ontario, outside, but it was an hour and a half east of Toronto, where I am now. And Peterborough was surrounded with, or I was surrounded by a bunch of small-minded people, okay? And in that city, there, the surroundings was very dull. Okay, the surroundings were very dull. And at the time, I wanted to be in the hustle and the bustle. I wanted to be in the mountains. I had these environments or these surroundings I wanted to be a part of that I wasn't in Peterborough. So I left the surroundings of Peterborough and I moved to Toronto. And then I moved to Vancouver because I wanted to be in I wanted to surround myself with new, physical surroundings. And then the same thing goes with living by yourself versus living in your own home, and what does that environment look like, and then the surroundings within that. So your surroundings definitely play a role. Another example is that if you are sitting in a drug house trying to become the world's healthiest person, and you're living there, that's gonna be really hard to be the world's healthiest person when everyone's partying and doing drugs in this house because of your surroundings, okay? And then the last one is obviously the information. So what information are you consuming on a day-to-day basis that is going towards that? Are you consuming any information? Are you consuming just a little bit of information? Are you fully submerging yourself? Or what information are you consuming that's pushing against that? Okay, so it's like, hey, I want to become the best version of myself, but the information I'm consuming is brain rot on my phone all the time. Well, it's no wonder you constantly keep slipping on the thing that you're trying to do, because every time you try to do it, you have this counter argument with the information you're consuming that says, no, you don't actually want this, because listen, the information you keep filling your brain with is counterintuitive to the life you're saying you want to participate in. Hopefully that makes sense. Next is experience and reps. So this is one of the last pieces that's going to take us to stage 3, which is validation, okay? And truthfully, there could be other things. There could be other things that I'm not forgetting, but leaving out here in terms of variables that is going to deepen or throw you deeper into participating in with whatever new version of you and reinventing yourself here. So think about what other variables could I manipulate that would allow myself to feel at a higher level of identification and participate on a deeper level with the skill, the habit, the life that I wanna lead here, that I'm identifying with. But just as a recap, we got clothing, language, so what kind of terminology, lingo, what equipment do I need? Go and buy the best of the best. What tools and software do I need? Go and buy the best of the best. Habits, what habits does the person that I want to become embody? What people do you want to surround yourself with that are doing it at the highest level? What is your surroundings that you should put, what is the physical things you should put in your surroundings? And then the information that you're consuming, and then the experience and reps. And so the experience and the reps takes us into stage 3, which is validation, okay? Now, validation, depending on what it is, may take multiple reps, and I'll give you some examples, or it literally takes one rep, one experience to feel like I'm actually able to identify with this thing because I'm participating with it, and then it goes around and around and around. You identify further, you participate at a deeper level, and then you get more validation from the response, which is the feedback, some experience, good and bad, and then you identify further and further and further, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper until it just becomes your identity. You're not identifying with it anymore, you are it, okay? So validation. is an interesting one. So the experience and reps piece. So first of all, to explain validation, it's basically I identify with this thing, I then go and participate to some level, moving towards becoming the thing or participating. So for example, identify with mountain biking, like, yeah, I'd give this a shot. I then participate by mountain biking, okay, but I'm kind of a noob, I don't have my clothing, I don't have my own bike. But then the validation, because I just mountain biked, I got enough validation because I went down the mountain bike, I went down the hill on the mountain bike and I felt the thrill of it. Oh my God, this is incredible. I feel amazing. The thrill and the rush and the flow state that I felt going down that's all I needed to validate my identification with it. So what I go do? I furthered the identification by participating, by buying a bike, by buying the clothing, by going and getting more experience. And then I validated it further by looking sick. And I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh yeah, this is sick. I look like a fucking mountain biker. I own a mountain bike, I'm taking pictures of it, I'm snapping it around. I'm going on little night bikes around the city. Why? Because the validation was so strong right away that I identified so deeply. So then I participated deeper, and then I got even more validation because I got better. And it went round and round and round and round. That was a fast example, okay? A not so fast example was when I was 15 years old, and I looked in the mirror many times before I did anything, but eventually there was the one where I'd look in the mirror and I'm like, oh man, I don't like how I look. I do not like how I look. I don't like how I think about myself. I don't like how I feel about myself. I'm gonna go to the gym. So at 15, there was some summer program at Good Life at the time, and I got to sign up for free or whatever it is. My mom gave me some money to get some personal training lessons. So I learned how to, some of the movements, etc. So my identification was, I want a different body. Okay, I saw a different body, I'm like, I want that. The participation was, I got a gym membership, software or tools or resources, and then I got a personal trainer to show me some of the habits or the techniques, right? The language, here's what the exercise is called, etc. So I started to participate, and then the validation came initially with what? Getting sore, feeling maybe a bit of a pump, but it wasn't really that. The validation with working out was a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. I started to see my chest a little differently. I started to see my abs, I started to see my arms, I started to see my shoulders, and then, oh my God, I'm hooked. And then I became what? I became a gym bro. I wasn't identifying with a gym bro or identifying with wanting to become a gym bro. I was a gym bro. Why? Because I was embodying all of the pieces for a period long enough that had me feel and look and act like a gym bro. Okay, but that came a little bit longer. And so the validation piece is interesting because you can participate and get experience and reps, but you might not feel the thing that's going to catch you and hook you in for a little bit longer. And so the validation needs to occur at some level. And with validation, I have some notes here. You need to ultimately have some level of acknowledgement, either within yourself or from the outside world, or you need to have some sort of shift of state or feeling, right? So another example of this would be partying. I do a drug, okay? I feel something, and then I'm like, oh my God, I feel great. And then I might do it more, and I might go down the wrong track, etc. But that's an example on the extreme of feeling something to validate what you identified with and you participated in. But you need to have some either level of acknowledgement or shift of state or feeling that allows you to want to further identify with doing the thing, to further participate in the thing, and then round and round and round. So acknowledgement is a huge piece because a lot of us don't acknowledge the results we're doing or the inputs we're taking. And that's what doesn't allow it to stick, okay? Now, the two main areas to close this video out that allows us to really go deep on a quick plan, like almost like a fast track to, again, reinvent yourself, is taking these variables that I've listed out here today and looking at each of them and how can you go about engaging and making shifts in your life within each of those buckets as fast as you can with all of them. Because the more you can check off, the deeper you throw yourself right away into the participation of whatever you're identifying with. And then the acknowledgement, first and foremost, when you put the clothing on, you will feel different, so validation. When you go and do the skill, you will feel different, so that's validation, good or bad. And then when you start to do it long enough, you'll get outside feedback. And again, this was me beforehand. I was skinny, no one commented on my physique besides literally telling me I was fucking super skinny. To then all of a sudden, a year, 2 years, 3 years in, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, over time, people started to say, oh, Cam, dude, you look good, man. Oh, have you been going to the gym? Dude, like, what's your gym routine? All of a sudden, I get outside validation from what I've been doing, in which that only I further identify with being this version of me, which is a jacked, shredded, yada, 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 right? But, it took me a long time to acknowledge the words that they were saying, acknowledge the effort I was putting in, and you can fast track that by practicing gratitude and practicing reflecting and celebrating yourself. This is why awareness and mindfulness is so important. If you can learn to acknowledge yourself and acknowledge the work you're putting in, you can identify with new versions of you quicker and faster and more effectively than before. Because acknowledging the inputs and the evidence you're giving yourself that you're becoming this new version gives you the validation, which further identifies, which pushes you deeper into participation. And so, to completely reinvent yourself, you need to do what? There's 3 stages. What are they? First and foremost, you need to identify. You need to get clear on what it is that you want to do. For me, it was going mountain biking. I'm down to go mountain biking. How do I do it? I participate. You can either participate with one or all of those elements that I shared with you, okay? Ideally, if you really want to make this thing stick, you do all of them. You buy the clothing, you get the bike, you get the software, the app, right? You start speaking the language, you understand at a deep level what's going on. You start surrounding yourself with other guys that mountain bike. You put it yourself in surroundings, so I live in beautiful BC so I can continue to mountain bike. It's really fucking hard to mountain bike here. Why? Because there's no mountain bikes, or there's no mountains to bike on, right? And then the last thing is you acknowledge the way you feel and what people are telling you differently, and ideally you just feel, right? First and foremost, you feel. I felt the thrill, right? And then you acknowledge that you're getting better. You acknowledge that you're doing the thing. And that, my friends, is how you completely reinvent yourself in one or all areas of your life, big or small, whether it's adding a new skill, taking a new skill, or taking something away. And maybe I'll make another video now that I say this on removing things, because we didn't really talk about removing things, but it's basically the antithesis of this. Stop wearing the clothing, stop hanging around the people, stop being in those surroundings. Okay? How to completely reinvent yourself. How to completely reinvent yourself in one day, because you can truly do this all in one day. And then the deeper you go with this, the more you identify, the more you participate, the more you get the validation and go, but you truly can reinvent yourself in a day, in a week, in a month. Like it's about nailing these variables, but it starts with identifying and then it ends with acknowledging that you've made those changes. And so that is it, my friends. Hopefully that was a banger for you, just like it was for me. I enjoyed just shooting that one. And if you want to completely reinvent yourself by surrounding yourself with great people and learning the information needed to become your best self, you know where to find us.